Oh hi. Najaf, the city in the south of Iraq, in 160 came to the south from Baghdad. Administrative center of the province of Najaf. The population according to estimated data for 2003 makes about card people. According to legends, Deir Rashid is founded in 791 by the Caliph Harun. The largest sacred city of Shiite Muslims in the south of Iraq, the place of their pilgrimage to a tomb of the Caliph and the first Imam of Shiites Ali, cousin and son-in-law Prophet Muhammad. The center of Shiite political life in Iraq. By the number of the Muslim pilgrims visiting this city annually concedes only to Mecca and Medina. It is located approximately in 160 km to the south from Baghdad and in 60 km to the south from the city of Hilla, on the right river bank Euphrates, at the height of 17 m above sea level. The trade and transport center on the way to Saudi Arabia. The city has very droughty, hot climate. Najaf is located in 30 km to the south from the ancient city of Babylon and in 400 km to the north from the ancient Bible city of Ur. The city was, in the general opinion, Abbasid of Harun al-Rashid, is founded in 791 by the Caliph. Najaf arose long before emergence of Islam. Archaeological finds prove existence of the population in the region since Jesus' times. Najaf possesses one of the largest burials of Christians. According to Islamic tradition, the just Caliph Ali ibn Abu Talib learned that the place of his burial has to remain a secret as he had many enemies, and he was afraid that his body can be subjected to humiliation after death. Dead Ali's body was thrown through a croup of a camel which was sent away from Kufa. The camel stopped in several miles to the west from present Najaf, where the body of the Imam was secretly buried. The place of burial remained to unknown within decades. More than 100 years the Caliph Abbasid of Harun al-Rashid went to hunting for a deer from Kufa, and the deer hid in a shelter where dogs couldn't pursue him. The Caliph found a grave and, having asked locals, understood that it was the place of burial of Ali. Harun al-Rashid ordered to build the mausoleum around which the city of Najaf grew in due time. At the time of the Ottoman Empire, the city was exposed to continuous attacks of the Arab nomad tribes and experienced difficulties with water supply. In this connection, the number of permanent residents sharply fell. Problems with water were solved by the beginning of the 19th century, but by this time the city already lost the value as the center of a pilgrimage and restored it only in the second half of the 20th century. At the beginning of the 16th century, the number of populated houses fell in the city from 300 to 30. When the Portuguese traveller Pedro Teixeira passed Najaf in 1604, he found the city in ruins, inhabited a little more than 500 inhabitants. It was substantially result of change of the riverbed of Euphrates to the east in the direction of Hilla that left Najaf and Kufu without water and led to decline of the ridge before of palm groves and gardens, to salinization of underground waters. In the 18th century, in scientific life, Najaf ulama from Iran began to dominate Persia. The city was besieged by Wahhabites at the end of the 18th century that induced clergy of the city to organize construction of a wall around the city and underground shelters for women and children. These strengthenings successfully sustained the subsequent siege of Wahhabites. Ottomans were expelled from the city by a revolt of 1915. Then the city passed to the British Empire. Najaf's sheikhs rose in 1918, having killed the British city governor and having blocked supply of grain of the tribe of Anaza, two allies of the British. In revenge, British besieged the city and cut off it from water supply. The revolt was suppressed and domination of sheikhs was overthrown. A large number of Shiite ulama were expelled to Persia, where they lodged in the city of Qom, having made it the new center of training of Shiites. In 1965, the Ayatollah Khomeini, the leader and the head of the Iranian anti-Shah opposition, lodged in Najaf. At the end of 1978, under pressure of the Iraqi authorities, he was forced to go to France, and in 1979 triumphantly returned to Iran and headed the new Islamic State. At Saddam Hussein, religious activity of the Iraqi Shiites was exposed to restrictions, considering a dominant position of representatives of the Sunni direction of Islam and proximity of Shiites on the religious beliefs to the neighboring Iran. In 1991, during the war in the Gulf, in Najaf, the Massachusetts revolt, which is cruelly suppressed by the Iraqi army, broke up. Considerable destructions were caused to the city, but it was restored. In February 1999, the spiritual leader Najaf Mohammed Sadiq al-Sadr and two his sons was killed. Accused Saddam Hussein's regime of murders. Business of the father was continued by his son, the young radical leader Muqtada al-Sadr. During the American invasion in 2003, the city was surrounded by the coming troops. On March 26, 27, under the city there was the heaviest fighting since the beginning of invasion, but wasn't exposed to storm for fear of political consequences and gave in without a fight in about 10 days, almost along with falling of Baghdad. In Baghdad there is an area, the so-called Sadr city, called so in honor of Sadiq al-Sadr, inhabited by about 2 million Shiites who consider themselves independent from the central authorities and carry out Muqtada al-Sadr's orders arriving from Najaf. Najaf became a stronghold of the Shiite insurgents headed by al-Sadr. The armed groups which he directs call themselves Mahdi Army. At Mahdi's Shiites is the Messiah, the Savior, the so-called hidden Imam who, according to the legend, completely disappeared at children's age, but will appear before Doomsday and will restore justice on the earth. In April 2004, Mahdi Army developed well-coordinated revolt across all central and southern Iraq in attempt to establish control over the country before the transfer of power planned for June 30 to the new Iraqi government. The revolt came to the end with truce with the American occupational authorities. Muqtada al-Sadr increased the authority and gained a foothold in Najaf, who entered a zone of responsibility of the Polish contingent of occupational forces. In August 2004, the city became the arena of fights again. See the Battle of Najaf, 2004. On August 5, the Mahdi army attacked the Iraqi police station at 1 o'clock in the morning. The governor called to the aid coalition troops, and about 11 hours fight within Wadi al-Salam, the largest cemetery in the Muslim world, ran high. Tanks and 3 battalions of the American Marines were entered into the city. After several days of fights, the centers of the conflict were transferred to vicinities of the Mosque of the Imam Ali when the Mahdi army took cover there. The American Marines surrounded the area and began a siege. The Mahdi army used the hotels coming to the cemetery as machine gun positions. 2 minarets of the mosque were damaged by fire of artillery. On August 26, two American F-16 made the airstrike on positions of insurgents that forced them to leave Najaf. Next morning the ceasefire agreement was reached. Sites. Najaf is considered the sacred city both for Shiites and for Sunnites. The main architectural city monument, the Mausoleum Mosque of the Imam Ali. Among the objects which are stored in the Mausoleum of the Imam Ali -550 manuscripts of the Quran, including the copy written a hand of the Imam. Besides, there are stored 420 jewelry, crowns, necklaces and other products from gold inlaid with gemstones, 214 gold candlesticks and incensaries, a rare collection from 325 carpets. Near the Mausoleum of the Imam Ali, the so-called Valley of the World. Wadi al-Salam. The huge Shiite cemetery where we'll take for burial of the dead not only from all Iraq, but also from other countries where the Shia Islam is widespread is located. For Shiites it is considered honorable to be buried near the Imam Ali waiting for the doomsday. There are graves of several other Islamic outstanding persons. For many centuries around a shrine the set of hospitals, schools, libraries, Sufi monasteries was built that turned the city into the center of Shiite theology. During rule of Saddam Hussein many of them were strongly damaged when directly through the Valley of the World the highway was laid. The Najafsky Seminary is considered one of the most important centers of training in the Islamic world. The Ayatollah Khomeini taught from 1964 to 1978 there. Many of the leading figures of the new Islamic movement which arose in Iraq, Iran and Lebanon in the 1970th years studied in Najaf. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.